Okay, number 93 in your classwork for analytical geometry asks to prove that the segment OS bisects the angle TOR. So this means that we want to prove that this angle is congruent to this angle somehow. First, we're going to need to do that by probably proving that the two triangles are congruent. And so let's list all the steps from there. So, okay, number one, we have a given. We're given that OS, the ray, is perpendicular to the segment RT. So number two, we have angle RSO. RSO is this angle here. And angle TSO are right angles. So TSO is this angle. This is because of the definition of perpendicular lines. So since the ray and the line were perpendicular, they form right angles. So this is the definition of perpendicular lines. Now we have number three. So RSO is congruent to TSO. This is because all right angles are congruent. So all right angles are congruent. Now we have segment OS is congruent to segment OS. So this segment is congruent to itself. That's just by reflexive property. Reflexive prop. Now number 5, OR is equal to 6, and OT is equal to 6. So the lengths of these two segments equal 6, and that is given by the distance formula. Or we can just look at it from the graph, since they're just perpendicular lines. They don't have a change in y for this one, and they don't have a change in x for this line, so it's easy to find the length of them. So this is from distance formula. Number 6, we have segment OR is congruent to OT. So So OR is the segment we just found the length for. Is congruent to OT. That's given from the definition of congruent segments. Definition of congruent segments. Now we have number 7. Is the triangles SOR is congruent to triangle SOT. So this is given by the hypotenuse leg theorem, since we have two right triangles. So we can prove that they're congruent with the hypotenuse leg theorem. Then number 8, the angle SOR is congruent to SOT. So this is the angle that we said before that we're trying to prove that are congruent to each other. So this derives from the fact that we prove that the two triangles are congruent. Now we can say that their corresponding parts are congruent to each other. So we use corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, CPCTC. And finally, we can say that number 9, so the ray OS bisects angle TOR. And this is just from the definition of a bisector. Since this ray OS comes out to form two congruent angles, this angle and this angle, so it therefore must be a bisector of the larger angle ROT.